Well, hello. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining in on this beautiful Saturday evening. And thank you so much for joining in into the EduChat series number 14. So we have been on the 14th week of the EduChat series. So it's been a very, very interesting journey that we have been chatting with so many excellent and experienced educators from around the world. And today, we will be having another very interesting topic. I guess a lot of you who have tuned in the Education Summit the other month, we have been already been chatting with him. So I guess we will be chatting all about the mental health, mental well-being, and everything about the inner part of our mind, right? Because we chat about a lot about the outer part on how we should deal on education. But what about the inner mind, right? So today it's all about the inner mind, because for myself, I believe that the inner mind plays a huge part in terms of how we lead quality education for kids, right? Because end of the day, if a child has not have a very healthy and a very a joyful mind, it's very hard for us to continue on the education process, especially in this time, right? So for those of you who are tuning in right now, please do comment down there from which country you're from. As always, we are always happy to see people from around the world coming in and sharing, and also to have the conversation together with us in this education summit as well. So yeah, please comment down there from where you're coming from, which country you're coming from, and say hello to us from there, right? So for today's session, I would like to just introduce our speaker that will be joining us right now. So his name is Mr. Pheh Shuen, and he's currently the lecturer and also a clinical psychologist. And he's based in the University of Tunku, Abdul Rahman in Malaysia, right? So today we will be chatting all about combating stress, right? Combating stress and also sustaining mental well-being for teachers and students as well, right? So for those of you who are not aware of it, formerly in Malaysia, the COVID cases are starting to climb up, right? So it's starting to get its feedback onto our current lifestyle. So I can slowly start to sense the stress level starting to spike up from there. So I guess it's a very, very interesting topic that we are having this week in dealing with stress as well. on how to deal with stress and also our mental well-being in dealing with these difficult times in education sector as well, right? So what I'm seeing over here, hello, Hafiza from Sempurna, Sabah. Wow, people from Sabah, do let us know as well how's the situation over there in Sabah, and also how are you guys dealing with the current situation over there, right? And from Ian, welcome Ian Brunia Orenio. Nice to see you again. Always a very good supporter from Indonesia, the Prince of Iloilo, the $48 million peso smile teacher. Right, and Happy Mooncake Festival, JN team. Greetings from Kuching as well. Happy Mooncake Festival, Mid-Autumn Festival for all of you who are celebrating 2 days ago. And thank you so much from there. So, okay, so without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Pheh Khai Shuen to come up on stage to join us together on this EduChat series. Right, Mr. Pheh, welcome to the EduChat series.
Hi, Jay. Thanks for having me.
Right. So, Mr. Pheh, how's everything today? I guess we just had a chat earlier that you just finished work, coming back from from the whole day's work from here. Everything good over there?
Yeah, things are good. So I'm in Perak. So thanks God there's no new cases reported in Perak today.
Right, and we are dealing with a lot of concern as well from people over in Sabah. Hopefully, everyone is staying well, healthy, and also sharp in a way in dealing with the current situation as well. Right. So, Mr. Pheh, I guess thank you once again for coming on into this Education Summit platform. Thank you so much for willing to come on stage to share with us your experience, especially in terms of mental well-being, a very important subject, especially during these times, right?
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Jay, for inviting me again.
Yeah, and Mr. Pheh, just maybe as a start, right? We didn't have much chat in the education summit the other time, so probably we can have more in-depth discussion with regards towards this topic as well. I guess a lot of the teachers during the feedback actually told us that this is actually a very important subject as well that they would like to expand upon. Hopefully, they are able to get more gold nuggets, right, in terms of how they can actually apply into their daily lives. In order for them to sustain a very healthy mental well-being, hopefully to have a more fun and engaging education with a healthy mind as well, right?
Yep, certainly. So
Right.
yes,
Right. So sorry. And by the way, for those of you who have any question for Mr. Pheh, you can actually comment down below, and hopefully we can have a conversation within us to come on board and to share the experiences, and hopefully to have a conversation with you as well, right? Okay, yeah. So, Mr. Pheh, for those of them that has not tuned in the Education Summit, right? Is it okay if we do some basic introduction on who Mr. Pheh is, what you have been working on, as well as your main forte in terms of the subject that you are currently working on?
Okay, sure. Right. Thanks, Jay. My name is Khai Shuen, and I'm currently lecturing at Universiti Tunku Abdul Rahman at Perak, Malaysia. So I'm heading the programs, a Bachelor of Counseling program at the university. At the same time, also practicing as a clinical psychologist, and both practicing in the university as well as a private practice. I have two areas that I'm specifically interested with. The first one is neurodevelopmental disorders, or more commonly known as learning disability, the learning disorders, including dyslexia, attention deficit hyperactivity disorders, ADHDs, autisms, and related disorders. So that's one areas that I'm very interested with, very passionate with. And the other part is on suicide prevention. So I've also worked a little bit in the field of suicide preventions, including understanding suicidal behaviors, and what are the things that we can do, how public lay people can help to prevent tragedy. Yeah.
And also, I guess we were having a chat earlier that Mr. Khai Shuen, you are also actively involved in working with teachers to help them to become better communicators with students as well. Would you be able to tell us more about that initiative as well?
Yeah, okay. So that's actually a project that's sponsored by Yayasan Hasanah. It's one of the, it's actually a CSR project by the Khazanah Group. So what do we do? It's actually on a mental health literacy training for teachers. In short, it's actually teaching teachers how to be more savvy about mental health issues. How would teachers be able to recognize what are the mental health issues that commonly seen among children and adolescents, and once you catch the signs, what are the things that you can do to support the child, and how do you refer them for professional support?
Right. Okay. So I guess let's start from there, right, Kai Shuen, in a way that teachers, they're sort of like a bridge between the student and also in a way they are basically dictating a huge part of the student's life, or in a way influencing their life. Would you be able to provide a sort of like a broad overview on how teachers are currently doing, especially in Malaysia, right? How's their current mental state of the situation of their mental state? I know during the education summit that time you were telling that, okay, 1 in 5 people in Malaysia are actually having depression. I'm not sure, do you have any information with regards to teacher for that case?
Well, we don't have specific informations on teachers. The data that we have is it's a little bit dated. That was about, I think, 10 to 15 years ago. So that might not be relevant to today's context anymore. The earlier study actually found that numbers among teachers, it's about 1 in 3 teachers that are experiencing quite significant levels of psychological distress. But teachers aside, if we look at general Malaysian, the number is about 29% of Malaysians are quite stressed out. Okay, clinically significant psychological distress.
Okay.
It didn't specify which types of distress, whether it's depressions, anxiety, or which type of stress, but in general, it's quite So 1 in 3 people are not doing too well.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Say for example, if I'm sort of like treat me like a very, very newbie in this age, just wanting to find out in terms of psychological distress, right? What does it actually mean if we actually translate it into real life? How do we know if someone has psychological distress, and what are sort of like the symptoms, or what can we observe out of a psychological distress person?
Okay, all right. Yeah, thanks, Jay. Before we go into defining psychological distress, probably it's good to understand what does it mean by psychological wellness. Now, so psychologists look at psychological wellness in several aspects. Number one is mainly it's how happy you are, whether you are happy with your life, whether you are satisfied with your life. Generally, in overall, how do you see yourself as a person? So, is your life fulfilling enough? Is your daily life, interesting enough for you to go on for the next days? Do you think that your life is worth looking forwards? That's one part. The second part of it is actually functioning. So by saying functioning, it means on how's your daily life going on? Would you be able to do what you are supposed to be able to do? So this functioning let's start from this physical functioning part. Would you be able to take your 3 meals a day? You have good appetites to take that 3 meals a day. People who are stressed out, people who are depressed, often they skip their meals because they don't feel that they have appetites to eat. Would you be able to sleep well at night? Do you feel well rested and refreshed when you wake up from your sleep? Do you feel that your daily life, the tasks and responsibilities that you're supposed to do, for example, so if you are teachers, would you be able to teach well? Would you be able to talk to your students well? Would you be able to address your students' concerns sufficiently? So those are the functioning areas. When someone has started to have issues with functioning, for example, they don't eat well, they don't sleep well, or they started to be they are not performing at job, then we would started to suspect that is that we usually see that as a functioning issues, and started to investigate what makes that person unable to function as well as they should be. Yeah.
Okay, so in a way, it stems from the day-to-day aspect of things. So the observation, if I could use an analogy, is like a machine, a well-oiled machine. If it's not functioning as it's supposed to, maybe a gear here and there has some issues, so we have to go in and deal with the problem. Okay, in a way, Mr. Kaishan, with people that or clients that you have been working with, right? What are the most common situation that you have observed with someone when they are actually facing psychological distress in a way? Would you be able to give the top 3 ones that you always have been observing in your field?
Yeah. So I guess the first issues when they when functioning first affected, the most obvious symptoms that the most easily catch up symptom is, I would say, they sleep. It's either they're unable to sleep at night, or they are unable to maintain the sleep, as in they are able to go into sleep, but they wake up several times at night. And then when they wake up the next morning, they don't feel that their sleep are refreshing. They're well rested. So that's the first that's the first thing that's the most obvious one, because when you start to worry a lot, when you start to have a lot of negative thoughts, then sleep functions usually are the most commonly affected.
Right.
And sleep is also the single factors that the most significant factors that predicts the next mental health issues. Lots of people when they first started to have depressive symptoms, they don't go into a very severe depressions immediately. As in they are crying the whole day, they're bedridden for the whole day. No, most people don't have that. But most people, when they first started to have mental health issues, sleep is usually disturbed. Some others people, they are able to sleep, but they are sleeping too much. So there are people that, whenever they feel stressed, whenever they feel that they're unable to cope with the demands of the environments, then they tune themselves. Okay, I don't want to deal with this. Let's get a sleep, and then they can be sleeping up to 16 or 18 hours a day.
Well, as a way to sort of like run away from the current issues that they're facing in a way. Okay, yeah. I guess from what I see is that as teachers or educators, we sometimes we have like 40 students, 80 students. Say for example, if we have like 5 classes, then we are dealing with 200, 300 students in a way, and that's like 300 individual beautiful person that would beautifully have their own challenges dealing with them, right? So in a way, for teachers, it's quite an interesting position to be in. That day to day, you have to deal with many students from there as well. Have you met with any of the teachers that or educators in a way that that they may be experiencing stress in a way, according to what you just mentioned earlier?
Yeah, certainly, because teachers are human beings. I guess that's another part that it's worth mentioning. Lots of people has been looking up at teachers, because you are teachers, you are an educator, you are supposed to be able to do well. We have lots of expectations on teachers, to the extent that sometimes when teachers are stressed up, they themselves are not they don't dare to get help. They don't dare to actually seek help from the professionals, because the fear of stigma is one thing. Secondly, of course, in my practice, I practice in a university as well as in private practice. Not many teachers are turning up in the private clinics, because most teachers probably prefer to they get better healthcare services covered by the government hospitals. So I do see some teachers in my practice, but probably not many of them. Teachers are having various kind of stress and a lots of daily life challenges as well. The working hours of, and interestingly, most people don't understand that, because many people see teachers works as it's easy, because you just go into class, you just pop at, you teach, and then that's it. And you are working on a half days only. You start your works probably at 7:30 a.m. and then you finish your works at 1:30 p.m. Then you are off. But the actual reality is, teachers are working much longer than that. So, and sometimes, and many teachers, I would say most teachers would, they'll bring their work back home, and they will have to mark the exercise books, they have to prepare exam questions, they have to prepare for their lessons next day. So one unique challenges I'm seeing for teachers is that the boundary of works, the boundary between, many corporates worker, they are able to draw that boundaries quite clearly. I don't bring my works back home. For example, if you're working in a bank, you are not allowed to bring any data. You are not allowed to bring back any files or documents back home to work. But if you are teachers, then very often, I guess 90% of teachers are bringing back their works to at home. So where do you draw the boundary that what is your working time, what is your family time, how do you juggle around different roles? And that poses a very unique challenge to educators.
Yeah. It's very true. I remember during MCO, I was chatting with a teacher, checking with her. Hey, how's everything going on? How's a teacher's life, right, during a lockdown period and such? And she was sharing with me that hey, she was telling me, hey Jay, do you know that right now it's even more stressful for us, and the workload for us is even more because right now, it used to be that when the class is over, I get my own time to deal with the homework. But right now, I have to deal also with the communication with parents as well. And I have to create syllabus in a way that I have to prepare all of the materials today, coming to tomorrow as well. And then coming 5 o'clock, I'm still communicating with parents and kids on their homework. So it's like there's no boundary that I can really tune off from there because this is the new situation that they are currently in, and I guess it poses quite an amount of stress that they have to deal with regards to the new way of engaging with kids as well, right? It's very true, like what you say, right? In a way, Mr. Pheh, how would you when you work with teachers, right, that may be facing stress in a way, let's talk about the continuum, right? So there's the very mild case, and then there's average case, and then there's a very severe case, right? Possibly, can we just focus in a way in the mild case first before we go on and speak about the more severe case? In the mild cases, how can a teacher actually sustain themselves in terms of their mental health as well, their mental well-being as well?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jay. Before I go on the mild cases, I guess we mentioned about psychological wellness or mental health. It's actually a continuum of from flourishings, meaning that you are doing very well. You're not doing you're not only doing well, but you're flourishings. You're doing better than that you could be, as in you becoming, your jobs, your career makes you to become a better person. You are able to function very well, exceptionally well, and your students benefits a lot from you. So that's on one hand, and on the other hand of the continuum could be people who have with very severe mental health issues. They probably have lost the touch with reality. They are probably unable to differentiate what's real, what's not real. They probably have they probably have the thoughts of hurting themselves most of the time of the days. Yeah, so that's on the other side of the continuums. So instead of jumping into how do people get into how do people with mild mental health problems can sustain themselves, I would say that I'll be more interested to discuss how do you keep yourself flourishing
Right.
in the yeah in the education field,
Right.
because if you are flourishing, then I'm sure your students will benefit from your flourish. Yeah,
Right.
students will definitely be well on that.
Right.
So if you're unwell, then it's very difficult that your students will be well.
Right.
Uh, First thing first, I would say is that it's about the values. What makes you choose the field of educations? What do you see the values of your job, of this career, of the education career? Is this something very important for you in terms of educating the next generations, in nurturing others people, in helping others people to become a better person?
Right.
So healthy teachers or teachers who are flourishing is someone that who will be able to see the values of their work.
Right.
Um, they don't be, and because they are seeing the values of their work, often they don't mind to go an extra mile to make others people life more complete. They don't mind to take the extra efforts of um, helping the students to helping their students or the parents to have a better life, to build up the better life. So yeah, so on flourishings, I think that's the first criteria of flourishings. You need to be able to know the values of your works.
Right.
And secondly, do you see that? Do you see the works that you are doing? What's the meanings and the impacts that you are making? If you are unable to see why are you doing this, and how is this works suits to your personality, as in how does it enhance your strengths, how does it meet how does it suits in your strengths, it's probably a very difficult situations.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Those of you, by the way, just wanted to find out, right? Those of you who are watching right now, quite a number of you who are watching right now, right? Do share with us as well. In terms of your happiness level, right? From a scale
Mhm.
of 1 to 10, 10 as in you're very happy, flourishing, you're enjoying your life as a teacher, you are like booming. Together with your student, you enjoy your life, you're in the flow, all right? So that's number 10. And all the way down to number 1. 1 as in how do we describe number 1, Mr. Kaishan?
You probably hate the job, you probably feel that it's very stressful, you probably feel that one I think one of the teachers I see recently told me that whenever I think of going to school, I feel like I want to puke out. I want to
Oh,
vomit. Yeah.
okay. Okay, so level 1. So for those of you who are watching right now, right? So scale of 1 to 10, because I guess the EduChat is all about you, right? So we want to find out more about you. What's your current state right now? So 1 as in very bad, is like a nightmare for you as a teacher or educator or as a parent, right? And number 10 is wow, you're enjoying the best time of your life. It's like you are sent from the heavens above down to the earth on a mission as a teacher, and you are living your life as a teacher, right? And just comment down there 1 to 10. What's your level currently right now? And probably we can have more understanding, and probably we can have more discussion with that as well. Okay, right. So comment down below, scale of 1 to 10. 1 as in very bad, 10 as in the best, right? 1 to 10, how happy are you as a teacher? All right. Okay. I can see some comments over here already. 10. Okay, that's very good. The first one over here, and let's see how it leads on from there as well. Right. Yeah. Speaking of with Khai Shuen, you were mentioning that some of the teachers actually feel very stressed out in a way that they feel like puking on the next day. Would you be able to sort of like give us a perspective, right? That was it the situation happened to that teacher suddenly in a way, or was it sort of like a graduation process where it builds up and end of it actually comes to this stage of skill number 1 in that way?
Well, Rome is not built in a day, most of the time, and symptoms as well. Many people, most of the psychological symptoms are actually develop over the years or over the time. Many people are in such a situations. There are multiple factors. I won't say that it's due to one single factors. It's often an interactions of very complicated their personal as well as the environmental factors. The teaching job is become the career in education. The teaching job is become more and more demanding, undeniable, and there are lots of changes in policies and changes in terms of the expectations of the parents and also the children's behaviors. All these things can be actually very, very challenging, and and it becomes more and more challenging. I guess many senior teachers will agree with me that as years goes by, the younger generation, many senior teachers find that it's more and more difficult to understand the younger teachers. Younger students nowadays. Well, that's one side, and the other side it's on how much. So the environmental demand is getting more and more, and many teachers don't have enough resources for coping.
Right.
So so stress means that when there's an imbalance in between the demand, whether it's external or internal demand, and your coping resources. So if this is a completely new problems, this is completely new issues that you have no ideas that on how you can deal with it, then you do not have that enough resources, and that can actually started to lead to a lot of stress, a lot of challenges, a lot of difficulties in dealing with the issues. And unfortunately, the demands of the support and resources that our teachers are receiving, most of the time, not quite there, not sufficient. It's far from sufficient coping or resources that provided. So then you have to learn about. That's where we started to think about how can we build up our capacity? How can we build up our resources? Yeah.
Right. And I can see over here, most of the comments are stating 10, 9, 8. So they are more of like the higher higher continuum, higher in the scale of continuum, which is very good. Happy to see that a lot of you are doing very well as a teacher. I guess for me myself as well, at times at some days it's like 10, 9, 10, very good. But on that particular few days of the month, I'm not sure why. Sometimes I might go down to like 6 or 5, probably due to stress and things like that. But when I'm doing Edu Summit, it's always a 10. When I'm doing EduChat series, engaging with you guys is always a 10. That's a plus point. It's just that when we have to go to the mundane day-to-day things that I might not really be enjoying as much, then they might actually drop on there. Is that normal in a way that you have like fluctuations in a way when dealing with the day-to-day aspect of life?
Yeah, of course, of course. Most of us fluctuates from time to time. So when is the time that is not normal? It's that if you found yourself to be on the scale of below 3, it's always in the scale of 1, 2, 3 for prolonged period. For example, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, almost every day you are on the 2 or 3, or even lower than that. Then that's something that need to be concerned about. You probably need to take a little bit of notes and seeing what's going on. Yeah, so if you are always on the 10, that might not be exactly a good news as well. I'm talking about there are people that when I ask or from a scale of 1 to 10 how well you are doing, they say 20, and I've always been 20. So that might not be that might be overly positive, and that's certainly not a good sign too.
Oh, I see. Well, why is that? Because I guess the current media in a way promotes like positivity. You got to be wow. I got to be happy, joyful every day when I go to school and things like that, and I got to maintain it in a way. Would you be able to share with us why is it that if you are maintaining too high of on the spectrum, on a sustained level, or why is it in a way bad or in a way unhealthy, if you put it in that way?
Okay, there are two reasons here. Reasons number one is that there is a psychological disorder, or one of the mental disorder. It's being called as bipolar disorders. So among people with bipolar disorder, they when they get manic or even hypomanic, at the high side, that's where they stay very excited, very enthusiastic, overly excited. and they believe that they are God, they are sent by God. They are going to save the world, all the time. They have lots of things wanted to do. They probably significantly reduce need of sleep. They and they talk very fast. They have lots of goal directed activities, behaviors, and they want to do a lot of things. So that's actually not exactly something that's very healthy, because often after an episodes of hypomanic or manic, they will turn down into depression quite quickly. So it's a sudden switch of from the high side, from the very top side, into a very downside. Now but bipolar disorders only affects about 1 or 2% of people in the populations. The rest of us, the 98% of us, are generally healthy, and you don't have a bipolar disorders. But it's still not exactly a good idea of overly staying so-called positive, because a lot of people, when they talk about being positive or talk about positivity, they are actually ignoring the dark side. They are actually completely, it's like avoiding all the mistakes or all the downsides that we have. And that's actually not our reality. Our real life consists of both positive and negative, and you got to be neutral to a certain extent. And so prolonged periods, and if you keep forcing yourself of looking at the so-called bright side on the positive one, then you're missing out on the negative one, which often provides you a lot of lessons about your life. If you have made a mistakes, yes, it's very regrettable that you have made a mistakes, but what have you learned from that? So I guess a healthy person is someone that who would be able to embrace their dark side, their weaknesses, their shortcomings, and at the same time, they are utilizing their strengths fully to the
Right, right. And I guess that's why they call that person, oh, he's a very centered person. So he's in balance, that he is not too high, not too low, but always maintaining that perfect sweet spot of balance in between the positive and negative. Have you met of any person that possesses this so-called balance? I always feel that a balanced person is sort of like the utopia, or the the straight A students that I've never actually seen before. Would you be able to describe to us, in terms of if there is a person out there like that, how would they be functioning on a day-to-day basis? How would they conduct their life, probably from a teacher's perspective?
Yeah. A balanced or healthy teachers, they have ups and downs in their teachings. They have ups and downs in their daily life. There are days that, they have been spending a lot of times in preparing their lessons. They go into class. There are days that they are able to deliver the lessons very well. Students engage in their lessons. They feel happy about it. All students mastered the learning outcomes. So and eventually, when they accomplish the job, they finish at the end of the day, they feel that, hey, I accomplished something, and I felt that students learn something from me. Now that's on the good days, but there are also days that, sometimes teachers prepare lessons, and you spend lots of times and efforts in preparing the lessons, but you go into the class and students decided not to respond to your lessons. When you ask questions, no one actually answering you. You created a games and interactive activities, so students are probably just sometimes there are students that even can be very sarcastic, saying that this is too lame, teacher. They they are probably giving you their cold backside on you. So that's so in those situations, of course, teachers will feel disappointed, and you feel that you are a little bit down, and instead of getting into, hey, no worries, I would cheer myself up. Now, a healthy teachers would probably embrace this moment of disappointment and frustrations, acknowledge their own feelings, and would tell himself that, hey, yeah, it didn't work this round. This is probably not something that is this is not something that meets the needs of the students, and I probably have to modify the plan. And in my lesson plan, these specific parts works very well. Students are responding to it. These specific parts, student doesn't seems to grasp it. I probably have to modify it in a way. Yes, I probably have made a mistakes, and I learned something from these mistakes. And yeah, so the mistakes I make contributes to my contributes to the betterment of my next lesson. So that's, in a way, it's a little bit more balanced. You embrace both of the bright and the dark side.
Right. Okay. And I guess in a way, since most of you that are watching right now, you're more than 8, 9, and 10, which is good. So I guess these are the so-called the high achievers, or those who are okay in that way. So I guess we can actually switch because based on this, I guess teachers who are watching right now, they are more of those type that are okay for themselves personally. Probably we can shift the direction of the focus into them probably helping others as well. Probably they have colleagues or students that they might actually be able to tell that they might have some form of mental challenges in a way. So how can they as a teacher help them in that way as well? But before we skew into that, right, I like what you say is that Rome is not being built in one day, and that to be able to have a very good or sustaining mental well-being, right, it takes sort of like a system, right, that you cultivate and you build certain systems and routine to enable you to be able to have so-called like a very centered and balanced mindset. Would you be able to share with us in terms of what are the factors, the key factors that teachers or parents out there can do that they can build in their life in order for them to have a higher chance to sustain a very good mental well-being?
Yeah. Okay. Since the teachers who are joining us tonight over here, many of them are high achievers, and one of the pitfalls.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was wondering if it could be that because they are watching Edu Summit, that's why they are at 8, 9, 10. So I'm not sure. Yeah. Yes.
certainly a contributing factors. Yeah, the Edu Summit. So one of the pitfalls, or one of the common issues with high achievers is that it's overdriving themselves, and after some time there could be burnout. So and I think it's very, very important to prevent that burnout. So there are three factors that will help to be preventing a burnout. In essentially, it's about being kind to yourself. It's not to overly criticizing yourself, not too high level of self criticisms. More and more research are looking into self kindness, as in we are here, we are as caring towards ourselves as we are towards others people. Many of good teachers, many of very dedicated teachers, they have been thinking about their students, thinking about thinking about parents, thinking about others people, supporting their colleagues all the time. But they forgot that the first person that they should support, and the most important person that they need to be kind, is actually themselves. So you need to be caring as towards yourself, how you care for others people. Take care of your own physical needs. Make sure you eat well. Make sure you sleep well. Make sure all your daily needs are being fulfilled. So that's the number one, the self kindness. It's very, very important. Number two, it's on the recognizing our common humanities. So common humanities means that we are all having a humanity means that we all have our strengths as well as weaknesses. We make mistakes from time to time. So it's not only yourself. If you didn't manage to grab students' attentions for this lesson, doesn't mean that you are a failure, but it's just normal part of life that things there are ups and downs in life. You may accidentally say something that hurts the students, and the students probably came to see you and say that, teacher, when you say that day, I'm actually very down, I'm actually very disappointed. There are teachers that immediately thinks that, oh no, I fail my student as a teacher. I should not make that mistake. I should not say that. Now, yes, we are. It's regretted that we have said that, but at the same time, recognizing that we are just human being, and we make mistakes from time to time. More importantly, what are the lessons that we have learned, and how can we improve it in the future? So when you realize that you are not the only one as a human beings that may make mistakes, I think that's how we connect with others people, because we are not God. And thirdly, it's on mindfulness. So this mindfulness refers to being open to the reality of the present moment, acknowledge that we are sufferings without overly exaggerated it. We know that we pay our attentions at the here and now moment without judging it, without saying that it's a good or it's a bad. It's about paying attention at the present moment in a neutral way, in a non-judgmental way. You see things as it is. Yeah. So if someone would be able to maintain self-kindness, recognizing our common humanities, and also maintaining our mindfulness, then that would be that's actually a vaccine for burnout.
Right. Okay. So treat yourself well. So common humanity and mindfulness as well. So is it okay to zoom in terms of the mindfulness factor? I guess it's so-called like a very buzzword. Would you be able to give some examples of you have given a few examples earlier as well. But would you be able to elaborate more in terms of the mindfulness side of things?
Yeah, so mindfulness, it's talking about you see things as it is without the judgments. So, for example, when there are students, for example, when you are delivering a class, so a few students probably they fell asleep. So, and teachers who are very self-criticisms, teachers who are very so-called not so mindful, judging themselves a lot, would be immediately thinks that, oh no, it must be my lessons are very boring. I'm not supposed to do that. I'm not a good teacher. I won't be able to attract my student attentions. I'm unable to teach my students well. Now that's someone who is very judgmental towards themselves. But the more mindful teachers would recognize the facts that, hey, when I see students fell asleep, of course I feel a little bit disappointed. But at the same time, I'm also recognizing that I'm also acknowledging that there could be multiple different factors that makes them fall asleep. So mindful teachers would started to go near to the students and say that, hey, I noticed that you fell asleep. Could you please tell me what's going on? And then the students say, oh, because before your class there was physical education class. We play very hard, really hard today, so I felt that it's a little bit tired, so I fell asleep. So that's actually, it's nothing wrong to it's not because of you, but it's probably just the environment or there are other factors. So it's about seeing things as it is without judging ourselves, without jumping into conclusions very quickly, concluded that it's whose fault. It's not about finger pointings, but you are trying to understand things as it is.
Okay, right. I guess including me myself, sometimes we have that kind of negative chatter. I guess like what you pointed out, it's sometimes about that little voice in your head that keeps telling you that, hey, this is bad. This is problematic in a way. So does it mean that it actually leads to a self communication in what speaks, or the conversation that happens in between our ears, as in because like what you say over there, the judgmental is always sort of like it comes in the form of a voice, right? that plays in your mind whenever things pop up, or suddenly something surprisingly pops up. And then there's like the mental chat that comes up. Either it's positive or negative. Myself, I experience it both side of things as well, depending on the mood. So so is there any way that we can take control of that mental chat in the way?
Yeah. So the step one is actually catch the thoughts. Once you know that there's a mental chat, there's a self-talk inside your head, and then that's where you started. That's where you can start to. Congratulations, you're about to you're getting it. Then so once you can catch the thoughts, then you want to. The step number 2 is assessing it whether it's helpful or unhelpful. All right. Helpful, unhelpful, as in, is these thoughts, if I keep telling myself that I'm not good enough, I'm not a good teacher, I don't deserve to be, I don't deserve to teach in the school, I'm not the best one, I don't deserve to what I'm given for. So assess and check with yourself of, is this going to be helpful for you? Is this going to boost your productivities, or it's going to make things worse? Right. So that's the first steps of assessment. The second steps of assessment is that, is there any evidence to shows that you are not good enough? You are actually really bad. Or is there any evidence that against the thoughts that you have? So if you keep thinking of, if the thoughts that you have is that I'm not a good teacher, is there any evidence to shows that? Have you heard it from the students? Have you heard it from your colleagues? If you heard it from the students, how many students have said that? Over how many students you have taught in the past? Is there any objective evidence for that? Or is there any objective evidence that's against the thoughts that you have? When I assess thoughts with most of the clients, most of the people that I'm working with, often they felt that, hey, there are situations that they found that actually it's 50-50. There are 50%, half of the students think that their class are really interesting, they like the class so much, and the other 50% of students probably just thinking that, no, this is not something that I'm interested with. So there's no absolute truth over here. All right, we are good sometimes and we are bad sometimes. And step number 3, it's on revising your thoughts. So how can you revise your thoughts instead of I'm not good enough as a conclusions? Could it be that, would it be more realistic, or could it be more objective if we were to say that there are times that I can deliver the lessons well, there are times that I'm a good teacher, there are also times that I make mistakes and I learn from the mistakes. Now, once you revise your thoughts and started to look into, think in a more objective manners, in a more helpful manners, such a thoughts of, there are times I'm good, there are times I'm not so good, and I'm learning from it. Certainly, it's more helpful than if you just conclude that I'm a bad person, I'm not good enough, I'm a bad teacher. Yeah. So once you have these revised thoughts, then the step number 4 is your experiment. You try to experiment it. Many people, when they found these new revised thoughts, they often, lots of my clients will tell that, are you sure this is helpful? Are you sure this is real? Because this is not how I'm being taught. My parents, my teachers, all this while have told me that I'm not good enough. So now you're telling me that you are probably doing okay. That doesn't make sense. So I will strongly encourage them to, you go and experiment yourself. If you carry these thoughts, how would you become? Right. So this is a 4-step process. If I were to take the initials of each steps, then you would say that then you will see that it's a CARE. So catch the thoughts, assess your thoughts with whether they are helpful or unhelpful, whether they are is there any evidence that support your thoughts, revise your thoughts, and finally experiment with your new thoughts.
Wow. Okay. So I hope those of you who are watching catches it as well. CARE, catch, assess, revise, and experiment with it as well. Right. Like Kashman, what you just mentioned over there, right? It seems that it's like a process of debating with your own self, with the thought in your mind as well. So it's almost like having another you inside. And let's say, for example, when things didn't go right, and then that little voice pops out and say, "Oh, you're very bad, you're terrible," and then you're sort of like telling them that, "Okay, I notice you. Show me evidence. Why is it bad?" So
Yeah,
you sort of like challenging them, like in the in a courtroom or something like that, and you're challenging them. Oh, is it
yeah,
true? Show me evidence. Where is it that is very bad? And then you're sort of like challenging your own thoughts in a way. Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. So in a way, it seems like very interesting that you have to actually do this as a process on a day-to-day basis to fight your own thoughts in a way.
If you have a lot of unhelpful thoughts, if you have caught a
Right.
lot of unhelpful thoughts in your mind, then it's probably a good idea of writing it down, because playing it in your mind can be very tiring, very taxing,
Right.
and sometimes you might lose the train of your thoughts. So I usually encourage people to write it down. And one of the teachers that I'm working with recently told me that, I'm not good enough in the sense that I'm unable to finish the four process, the CARE process in one go. But what I can do is I write down whenever I catch a unhelpful thoughts, I will just write it down, and then I chew on it for a few days. Think
Right.
about it for a few days. It probably takes some times to assess, to get the evidence, to accumulate, to collect the evidence, and then maybe it takes them another few days to revise the thoughts, and another few days for them to experiment the new thoughts. So it's not something that you need to finish it in one go.
I see. Right. So when you were mentioning something like writing it down, is it so-called like a diary that, or like a journal that you just sort of like recording the thoughts that goes in your mind, and just pay attention, just observing the brain on what's the conversation that is taking place in the brain. Okay.
Yeah, so writing it down, journaling it, it's a good idea. And recently, there are actually a numbers of mobile apps that allows you to record your thoughts, because most people nowadays, we bring our mobile phone everywhere. So, and it's with us. So whenever you catch your thoughts, you just jot it down in your mobile phone. There are apps that helps you to do this. But at the same time, if you just want to write down paper and pencil, and that's certainly fine. And as days goes by, you become more and more skillful in doing this self care, I call it, because it's a process of caring for yourself. Once you revise your thoughts, as you are more and more skillful in self care, then you probably will be able to do it without writing it down.
Okay, right. In a way, by the way, when you mentioned about app, right? I was just experimenting with one of the app. It's called Daylio, Daylio. So how
Mhm.
it happens is that every day they will pop up a screen, and first they'll ask you how you're feeling today. So level
Oh,
1 to 5, right? Are you happy, angry, miserable? So you can label your emotions of the day, right?
wonderful.
So let's say, for example, I'm happy, right? So when you click that happy icon, what's going to happen next is that they're going to ask you, what activities are you currently doing that because of that you're happy. So you have to click, or I'm at work, or I'm eating, or I'm having a chat with a friend, or I'm traveling, right? So for example, if it's on the negative side, oh, I'm very stressed out, right? And then they'll ask you, what activities are you doing that leads you to stress, and you can have the entire log and everything. So that's quite an interesting app as well that you're mentioning as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, excellent. Yeah, if you will be able to keep tracks on how your daily activities are influencing or affecting your, your mood, then in long run, that's going to give you some evidence, or give you some data that, hey, whenever I do this, it tends to leads me to a low mood. So how can I modify the activities, or
Right.
what else are the things that I can help myself? Yeah.
Right. It's almost like looking into your room, and then, oh, it's very messy, and then it's sort of like okay, I don't like this thing over here. Maybe I should throw it away. Okay, this is very good. I should preserve it in a way. So it gives you sort of like a mental map on what you can remove, what you don't like, and then sustain what you like in that way.
Yeah.
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 By the way, is this applicable? Let's say if I'm a teacher, right?
Mm.
And if I catch, say, for example, my students having negative thoughts, can I actually teach this to kids? Is it healthy for them at a younger age to actually adopt this method?
Yep, certainly. There are a few different. There are a few similar but slightly different models of teaching these skills to childrens, and that's going to and many research have shows that it's actually very helpful. However, that's one key point. That's one key point before you are teaching this to children. It's that we are not help. You are not going to help the child to challenge the thoughts or debate the thoughts on the second steps on the A, right? So a lot of us as an educator, we tend to just tell students what are the do's and don'ts, what are the good and bad. So always allows the child to assess it on their own. They are the one who is going to collect their own evidence of truth and false, and also in terms of revising the thoughts. Sometimes children may not be able, especially at the beginning, they may not be able to come up with a thoughts that's more balanced, something that's more helpful for them. Then they may you may need to brainstorm a little bit with them and then combine the ideas and get them to do some experiments later on.
Right. I guess the guidance process, because we are dealing with a child, and then extra steps has to be taken into precaution to make sure that can this in any way aggravate any negative side of things if we were to do it in a improper way with children?
Yep, especially at the first steps, at the so-called catching a thoughts. So if you are being a very judgmental person and you're telling the students that, look, you have these thoughts again, this is a negative thoughts and you are not supposed to think in that way. That's too negative. So of course, this is actually activating the students' defense. And once they become defensive, they would not be interested to talk to you anymore. They would not want to participate in the self-care process anymore. Yeah.
Right. In a way, some students that I actually worked with before, the common one, the most common one is that when we're doing some form of activity, they would say, "Oh, I'm just not good at this. I don't want to participate." So,
Yeah.
so immediately you catch that thought, but it's just that you can't step in and tell them, "Hey, this is a negative thought," right? And so what happens is that if, let's say, for example, the example of the kid, right, telling that, "Oh, I'm not good at this. I really am bad at this. I don't want to participate in a way," right? How can you as a teacher have that kind of communication to lead them to understand that, hey, these thoughts, you can actually challenge it, right? In a way. How can that conversation actually take place with a child that has this form of so-called negative feedback? Yeah.
Okay, that's a great question. Once you've got the thoughts, or once you suspect that could be that could be a negative thoughts, then the next things you probably want to do is listen first. Listen and try to understand from the child's perspective. So what makes the child thinks that he's not good? Things that I would say is that, could you please, just now you mentioned that you're not good at this and you're not interested to participate, you won't be able to make it. Could you please tell me more about that? Have you, what are your experience on these matters? It sounds to me that you probably have experienced a failure previously. Would you mind to share with me what are your experience? And you probably want to listen the entire whole story without judging them, without wanting to correct them, without wanting to explain yourself. No, this is different. This is not complete. This is not the same as last time. I'm assuring you. You know, when you're trying to advise, when you're trying to deny their feelings, then it's not going to be very helpful. Acknowledge their thoughts, because it's yes, it is a negative, unhelpful thoughts, but it's also something very, very real for the students or for the child. This is in their mind, in their head, in their little head, that's the reality. So, and we want to shake that reality a little bit. Yes, our goal is to shake that reality a little bit, but you need to do it very tactfully. Listen first, and then invite them to assess the thoughts. And you may say something like, "I'm not too sure whether this makes sense to you, but would you like to assess these thoughts, to look at these thoughts again? Is it really, if you keep thinking in this way, how does it going to help you? Does it do more help or doing more help or doing more harm for you? How do you know that your thoughts is exactly correct? Do you have is 100% true? How do you know that it's 100% true?" Now remember, the answer should always comes from the child instead of the teachers.
Right. So the teacher asks in a way, asks the questions, and
Correct.
then just play it. So it's almost like becoming a clinical psychology themselves as well.
Yeah, you're providing some forms of first aid in a way.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess earlier we were discussing about that. You actually have a program that you work with teachers in enhancing the communication effectiveness with students. Probably we will talk more shortly in a while. But before we go into that, I would just like to bring up a few questions coming up from the audiences over here. I guess there are some questions piling up over here. Let's address it one by one over here. So the first question over here is that, hello, do you agree if counselors in schools can also play a role as buddy or support system for mental well-being? For teachers, not only cater for students' affair. Oh, okay. So in a way, counselors, in usual case, they only work with children as a whole, right? So should they actually work together with teachers as well? So yeah.
This is actually an ongoing debate.
Are all humans, right?
Yeah. This is actually an ongoing debate for, people has been debating about this for years, and including the institution that I'm working at as well. This is a frequently brought up issues. Many management systems and also some counselors, their concern is that the multiple relationships. We are colleagues in one hand, and on the other hand, you're expecting me to so-called providing you so-called counseling. Then that's not something that's very, very good. It's not in the best positions. But I would agree with you. Formal counseling, formal therapy may not be the best thing to do. However, I would agree with you that as a buddy or as a support system, certainly, definitely, because in a typical school environment, a school counselors is probably the persons that with most mental health knowledge in the school. They know most numbers of things as compared to other teachers. And in that sense, they can actually play a little bit of role. At least you're not going to become the so-called the psychologist or the counselor for your colleagues, but what you can do is, if you can provide a little bit of first aid, that you will be able to put up a little bit of bandage and refer your colleagues who have greater needs to professionals. That could be actually be very helpful. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So hopefully that answers the question. So provide some help, some assistance, and then probably referring them to a professional person to deal with that as well. Okay. Right. Next question over here. What I'm seeing over here is that do you come across a factor of management that can also sometimes contribute to mental well-being of teachers in your intervention with teachers? Example: servant leadership, dictatorship, and non-humanistic leadership. So I guess the question over here, I'm not sure if I understand, Khai Shuen, for the question over here, across factor of management can contribute to, so the management role in helping teachers or students to have mental well-being. Any comments on that?
I would say that it's probably the teacher's well-being. The questions over here asking on whether Some teachers are suffering from mental health issue. It's probably due to their school leaderships. So that has become a risk factor. Certainly, I think this is not only happens in school, but happens in any workplace as well. To a certain extent, some employees are suffering from workplace bully, or even workplace abuse. Because in school, in a school structures, there are differences of power. So, of course, the school principals and the senior assistants of the school, they have more power over the normal teachers, the other teachers. So, when there are power differences, and people who are not taking good care of the powers that they have, or they are not, sometimes they may be intentionally or unintentionally have abused the power, and that could actually contributes to workplace abuse, workplace bullying. Yeah, that can actually make some teachers suffers quite significantly.
Right.
So yeah, in that case, I think many schools now, they might have workplace bully policy. How do you and how to handle and some of the procedure for grievance. How do you brought up a grievance? How do you what are the channels? So yeah, you probably want to check it out, that if you believe that your school leaderships has abused the power, then you may want to check out how can you report that to a higher management, and how can that be addressed. Yeah. It's especially important to address these issues because often when workplace bully happens, it doesn't affect only one person. It affects a groups of teachers. And worse still, when teachers are not well, the students are going to be the secondary victims. They are going to they'll be suffered as well. Yeah.
Right. And I guess speaking of that, maybe I can share one example as well, which I see in some schools, right? When I'm working with some of the schools, what I see is that some schools over here pay a huge attention into this issue because when there's human around, there's bound to be some disagreements and challenges in terms of communication as well. And what you say, bullying being one of it. And what they have is that I guess in schools, or let's say in workplace as well, usually in a team of above 200 to 300 people, right? Usually they will have established sort of like a committee of a team that is ongoing looking into this factor. And what they do is that they allow a communication anonymously, right? So I guess the number one thing is that to really acknowledge that, hey, this is something that happens, and they allow sort of like an anonymous process for people to voice it out. It could be like a box where that people can actually voice it out, right? If something of this nature happens, and if there are a lot of it that is being brought up, right, then some actions is being taken. I guess a lot of places is that they don't even allow an acknowledgement of things like this even happening at the first place, right? So I thought that was a very interesting approach, whereby probably every month they would have like a poll. Hey, are there any dissatisfaction in the school that you can bring this out anonymously, and then we can see some of the feedbacks, and let's see how we can address it in the best way from there. Yeah. So just a thought from there. Okay, I guess next up, let's find out one more questions over here. Okay, from Ian over here. Thank you again for summarizing. So Mr. Pheh just dropped us a gold nugget over here in terms of how we can self-care in terms of our mental well-being. So self-kindness, recognizing that we are just human beings, and mindfulness. That was the first one, and the second one was CARE method. Okay, thank you so much, Ian, for contributing and summarizing it for us. Okay, and next up, let me bring up and okay, Ian just summarized another one as well. Catch your thoughts, assess, revise, experiment. Okay. Okay, this question over here. Clinical reflection for own weakness and strength after lessons will be marvelous practice, because we can self-develop with authentic data. recording owns teaching will help a lot from experience. Thank you for the feedback. Okay, right. Oh, okay. I missed out the question just now. In life, we have two circles, the circle of action and circle of concern. So as teachers, I just do my best in my circle of actions. And if you can't change anything in your circle of concern, school setting, then let it be and move on. Do you agree on that? Okay. So we're talking about taking action on what you can control and probably just take it easy on yourself on things that you can't control. Is that something that Mr. P, maybe you can add on as well from towards this?
Yeah, I certainly agree with this. Yeah, there are certain things that you can be the circle. Ideally speaking, the circle of concerns and circle of actions has a lot of overlap, right? These two circles are overlapping a lot. That you can take a lot of actions to address the concerns that you have. But life is not always goes on as we wish. There are times that there are things that in the circle of concern, but it's out of our it's beyond our influence. It's not something that we can do to help the situations. Then probably we probably have to accept the fact that yes, I can't do anything. I can't do something on this now. But if they are when opportunity arise, how can I then probably I will address the issues. Examples like curriculums. Yeah, teachers are not the one who decided the syllabus. You are not the one who write the textbooks. But there are ways that in your circle of actions at the same time, you're the one who deliver the curriculums. So you can choose how you want to deliver the curriculums in a fun way, in a more practical ways, in some things that will make more sense to your students. Yeah, so those are the things that is still within our control. I like the way you that you put in it, the circle of actions and circle of concerns. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for all those questions over here. And those of you who have any more questions for Mr. Khai Shuen, probably you can comment down below so that we can have that conversation and probably we can address it from there as well. All right. So let's jump back into what we just left out earlier, which is the CARE method, right? There's a few questions over here since I guess we were speaking with teachers from Philippines. They are currently still under in a way, students can't go back to school yet. In Jakarta as well, students are currently just on an online education basis, right? So for the CARE method, right, is it implementable if it's being done online? In a way, can it be effective in that approach? And number two is that what's the setting like? Can we do it in one-on-one basis? Should it be done in one-on-one basis, or is it okay to be done in sort of like one-to-many in that form? Any comments on that?
Okay. I probably will address the second question first. Initially, this is a skills that being developed for a one-on-one works. But recently, there are more and more studies and research have found that if you were to teach the same skills, the same techniques to students in the class format, in the classroom setting, that actually helps them to in a way preventing from getting mental health issues, because they learn the skills to help themselves think in a more helpful way instead of the not so helpful thinking. You help them to think good and they are going to feel good. So it can be used in either one-on-one basis, and it can be also in a group format. Now, what are the situations that you probably want to consider for a one-on-one basis? When the students, let's say you teach this in a classroom settings, and the student probably mentions, or the students brought up as very specific issues that is very personal. For example, many years ago, I have an experience that the students actually brought this up, saying that I'm very dirty because I have been abused, sexually abused by others people. Then it's probably not the best approach to address this in the classroom setting. it's best to work this on a one-on-one basis and find out what are the safety conditions. Is the abuse still ongoing? Has any reports being made? Has any helps that the students have been receiving? Yeah, before you come into come into revising or changing the thoughts. Yeah. On the first questions on whether this is implementable in an online setting, in the online teachings, yes, certainly, it's something that you can deliver it online. Uh, uh, However, the limitation is that when you do it online, it's probably less fun and less interesting in the way that you can just you probably will just talk it out. I've seen some other teachers that when they teach it in a physical format, they develop different games, they develop different hands-on activities for the students to work it out. So for examples, they sometimes have a debate. They get students to be in two sides, and the students are debating on whether the thoughts are real or whether the thoughts are not real. I guess, but to think about it again, some software, some online teaching software may allows you to do that. If you can break students into two different groups and then they discuss on their points and then get them to do the debate, then that could be quite interesting as well. Yeah.
Right, right. I guess during the Education Summit 1, right, when a lot of the teachers were sharing online teaching methods, quite a number of them actually shared to us that, hey, we actually started off by asking them to rate their happiness level, all of the students, before we start any online classes. So via WhatsApp, right, then they ask them to put in emojis on what's your current emotion. So it's sort of like a so to understand the current the students' emotional state before moving on towards it. So I guess the CARE, the CARE method, is sort of like a much in-depth method that teachers can actually add on top of that as well. Yeah. So I guess end of it is really to allow teachers to have more understandings for students as well from that manner, right? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Moving on towards that, right? We were discussing that you actually have a program for teachers, right? In terms of effective communication with students, right? Would you be able to share with us more with regards towards that?
Oh, okay. So that's actually a mental health literacy training program for teachers. We know that in Malaysia, the mental health issues prevalence rate is rather high. I think during the Education Summit, we have mentioned quite a bit about that. There are numbers of most shocking. 1 in 5 students are actually having depressions. 2 in 5 are having very severe anxiety, and others are really stressed out. And in terms of suicidal ideations, about 1 in 10 of our students are actually having very significant suicidal ideations in the past 30 days. So, but we don't have enough of mental health professionals, and often when students comes to see a mental health professional, it's always too late. It's either the students probably have attempted suicide, or probably the students has refused to go to school at all when there are some things that is really, really dysfunction and really disturbing that has happened. So me and my colleagues, we started to think about what can we do? How do we bridge the gaps? In the medical field, in the health sciences field, we call this as treatment gaps. Treatment gaps means that people who have the needs, okay, for example, people with mental health issues, we know that about 1 in 10 students have suicidal ideations, and versus numbers of people who actually get the service that they need. For example, how many of them are actually getting psychological services or psychiatric services? The number is really, really low. So it's probably about, in Malaysia, on average, it's only 5 to 10% of people who has a mental health needs. They actually receive mental health services that they need. So unfortunately, the rest of the 90 to 95% of them are not receiving any help. How do we bridge the gaps? What are the things that we can do to help to close up the gaps? So me and my colleagues are thinking of there are two things that we can do. Number one, we go into schools and we call up teachers. We train with that. We share with the teachers on what are mental health issues. What does it mean by having a mental health issues? During the Edu summits earlier, we mentioned that when students are not coming to school, instead of concluding that students are skipping school, students are playing truancy, students are not interested in study, there could be actually a functioning issues. Means that the students are not attending school because he or she is already dysfunctions. Now, attending school is a basic functions of students. So having a dysfunction means that the students is potentially facing some mental health challenges or other forms of health challenges. That could be either one. And since the students is potentially having that, how do we detect it? So we taught teachers about what is depressions, what is anxiety, what is learning difficulties, also on what are internet related problems. I think that's very, very common nowadays, and self-harm behaviors, suicidal behaviors. And after you detected that, what can you do to support them? We developed an acronym called KASE. KASE in Bahasa Malaysia, it's a Bahasa Malaysia words. It's also it means care. Okay, the CARE care. So KASE as in the step number one, K stand for kenal pasti tanda-tanda, as in you identifies the symptoms, the signs and symptoms, such as when students started to be dysfunctions, when students sleep a lot during the class, there could be some sleep issues behind that. Step number two, A stands for active mendengarkan. So you listen actively to the students instead of very quickly jump into the conclusions that okay, you sleep in the class means that you're not paying attention, means that you're not interested with studies, means that you're not respecting me as a teachers, means that you don't appreciate my efforts. Instead of pretty fast jumping into the judgments and conclusions, you would like to listen actively to the student, trying to understand what's going on with them. And S stand for keselamatan dipastikan. A lot of students are probably having safety issues. They are suffering from, especially during the COVID time, where lockdowns happen. Some safety of some students may be actually compromised. And informasi yang berguna diberikan. So it means that you're sharing useful informations. You are telling the students that, hey, this could be looks like this is something that I'm really concerned of. This is where you can get help. Or you will want to tell the parents. You probably want to talk to the parents about this, about these situations. And finally, the last steps, H, is a hantar or rujuk kepada pakar, as in you refer them for specialist care. So it's either to a psychiatrist, to a psychologist, or to anyone that can provide some help to the students.
Right. Okay, so there's 5 steps over here. So these are all the 5 steps that you would be sharing with teachers out there as well.
Yep.
So is it available for all teachers out there? How can, if there's any teachers, let's say for example in Edu Summit, teachers from all over 40 different countries, right? How are they able to get any accessibility towards any of the informations over here?
Yeah, right now, not really, because because the materials that we have was in Bahasa Malaysia. We developed it for Malaysian teachers. That's number one. Number two, me and my in the past 3 years, we have delivered this program in in the physical format, in physical workshops. But understanding the COVID-19 situations, we are now thinking of how can we digitize it so that we increase the accessibilities of the programs. More teachers can be benefited from our programs.
Right. Okay. So first of all, I would like to say it's very commendable, you and your team over there. that are doing this for the teachers out there. It's a very, very important subject and a very serious subject as well. Reading back to what you were just mentioning over there, I'm not sure if I hear this correct. 1 in 10 students have suicidal thoughts. That's quite high, right? 1 in 10. It's like
Yep.
my
Right.
students, one of them would have suicidal thoughts, and only 5 to 10% of them actually have any form of expert and or a professional person that can actually help them on that. It's quite worrisome in a way that you're bringing this this situation. Okay, yeah. So for if you are open towards it, probably I'm not sure if any of the teachers would like to hear more about this. Hopefully, maybe we can have an education summit, especially on the teacher side, in maintaining mental well-being. Let's see if we can work out something on that to have the CASE system and to share with them on all of these subjects on mental well-being as well. I'm not sure if you're open towards it. Probably we can have a chat on that. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we can talk
Right.
more about it.
Yeah, and those are watching right now, if you find this information important, please do comment down there below. Do let us know if this is something that is really in need in your school, especially for those who are overseas as well. We'd like to hear more about if these informations are available for you. Probably we can work out something with Khai Shuen and the team over there to have this information, right? So please comment down below if it's needed from your side, right? Okay, so there's someone that actually brought up the acronym over here. Thank you so much for that. And Ian as well earlier for summarizing it. CASE, identifying, active listening, safety informations as well. Okay. One question over here, Khai Shuen. The same system over here, right? Does it apply for parents as well? Being able, can we put the parents' role and the teacher's role on the same perspective when we are working with students?
Yeah. Why not? And I guess when it comes to students' mental health, it's extremely important that parents and teachers are working hands in hands. Our students now, students are spending 8 to 10 hours in school per day.
Right.
Yeah. So and probably and parents are working, and sometimes in some families, their children probably are only seeing their parents 2 to 3 hours a day before they go to sleep. Yeah, so I guess there are in many circumstances teachers, and if teachers and parents can work together, I'm sure that will ensure the best outcomes for the students.
Yeah, so I guess for those parents as well, teachers, if you don't have you have students from there, probably you might have to communicate with parents as well, working hand in hand with parents in working with students, especially during these times, right, where students might be spending 10 hours on school. That's quite stressful in a way. Even for us working adults, 10 hours is quite steep in a way in putting your mind through that kind of process. Yeah, right. Yeah, and in terms of the program for teachers, right? Would you be able to share more in terms of what are teachers? Say, for example, if I'm a teacher, right? What are the key aspects that I should really take notice of my students, aside from the CASE system that you just mentioning over there? What are the key fundamental things that me as a teacher I should absolutely take notice of when I'm working with students and parents as a whole?
Okay. I would say that when you the fundamental belief here is that kids do well when they can. When kids are not doing well, when children are not doing well, it's because they cannot. It's not that they don't want to. All right. There's a fundamental difference between they don't want to do well versus they cannot do well. So, as a teachers or as a parents, I think our job is that we want to find out what makes them unable to do well. I'm sure all children they would love to be liked by all adults. They would love to be liked by their parents. They would love to be liked by their teachers. But at times when they're not doing well, then we want to find out what are the things that what is getting in their way. often we found that it's actually because they are lagging of there are certain skills that they are lacking of. For example, the students who has been students who frequently throw tantrum in the class, you can see that this student is very stubborn, this student is very rude, this student is very no manners. You can put all sorts of labels on the students, and at the end of the day, we need to ask ourselves, does label solve any problems? Does label help us to reduce frequencies of the problems? Or do you want to see it as, goes back to the philosophy of kids do well when they are able to? Then you know that when this child is throwing lots of tantrum in school, it means that he is lacking of certain skills to do well. What is the skills that is lacking of? Probably it's emotional regulations. The child is lack of how to control his emotions. He's lacking of a skill of how can he regulate his emotions, and also his feelings. So if the problem is lacking of skills, then the next things to happen is, as a teacher, is to teach the skills instead of condemning them. It doesn't help if you condemn them, but it will help when we start to teach emotional regulation skills. For examples, when a student is not learning well, when a child is having difficulties in reading, in writings, in spelling, despite of repeated teachings, then we probably want to think about what's going in between. Is it that they really don't want to learn, or they are unable to learn with the methods that we are teaching them? If a child is unable to learn with the method that we are teaching, can we teach with a method that they can learn? Right? So because what they are lacking of when they are not learning well, most likely is because they are lacking of learning skills. They're lacking of skills to connect. There's a gap in between what we teach and how we teach and how they learn. So can we bridge up the gap in between, providing them certain learning skills? Maybe we change the teaching methods to improve their learning outcomes.
And I guess from Education Summit, a lot of the teachers and educators actually shared on this as well, in terms of how it's being taught and how do you customize it for the students, best preference for the students to understand what is being taught. It's very interesting as well. Because I always say that at now at times, being an educator of a teacher, you're imminently taking on a role as a clinical psychologist as well. There's no other way around that. At least a very basic aspect of understanding how to work with children, right? Especially in terms of emotional regulation. And there was one teacher, I guess, in the Education Summit was sharing that this should be a topic that is being taught in school as part of a core syllabus, because it's more than ever so important, especially at the current stage right now, on how a child should actually learn how to regulate their emotion, or to have more tools and skills for themselves when they are facing with stressful situation, on how they can work around that. For example, like the care system is something simple but easily implementable that can really help a child to go through a very tough time of their life, right? So hopefully Kai Shuen, the work that you and your team over there, that definitely it's a very much needed approach, especially for children right now. Mm-hmm.
Respond to what you were just mentioned just now, Jay, regarding that we should have covered this in our school syllabus. Do you know that it's actually emotional regulations, learning about our feelings, and identify our own feelings, acknowledging our own feelings, and how to regulate our own emotions? Do you know that it's actually in our school's core syllabus? It's actually in the textbook.
Oh, I see. Okay, right.
You're not aware of that, right?
Yeah,
Because
no,
it's
no.
okay. And it's not just recently, it has been there for more than 10 years. Our Ministry of Education have actually included in the syllabus, in the curriculum. The problem is it's not being taught in the school. It's not fully being implemented. There's a gap in between our educational policy and the executions of the policy. All these topics are actually being covered under the health education, health and physical educations. The periods, the time when we were in the school, we usually have our physical education class,
Right.
but teachers are very seldom teachers are teaching the health education component. So
Right. Correct.
it has actually been included there, but it's just that not being delivered. I guess the next thing that we should think about as an educator is how do we bridge the gap in between policies and executions and implementations of the policies. Yeah.
Right. True towards that as well. And I guess not to put a blanket statement of all teachers as well. I guess the syllabus, some teachers do actually take this very seriously and teach it in their school as well. There's no doubt on it as well. I guess another part that I would really like to bring up is that the way that is being delivered to the students is it sort of like a very formal, hey, this is the care system, this is what happens when you're feeling down, right? Just write down the care system, or was it being guided in a way that is being implementable? Is it being like monitored or being guided by the teachers in terms of a step-by-step basis? That's very important as well, right? And of course, does the teacher actually practice it themselves, or is it sort of like okay, it's just another lesson that I'm going to teach in school, right? And it makes a huge difference on there, right? I thought that this topic, like what you have presented in Education Summit, when you actually put it in like a, like a comic or in a very situational format, that's very informative and it's very relatable. I always thought that syllabus like this should be done in sort of like a comic or like a video presentation manner, so that students can easily relate to themselves and implement it when they are facing these difficulties. Yeah, but of course, that's my opinion. My thought is that when we're feeling down, right, it's very hard to muster up the strength to actually carry through the activities by yourself, right? Hence the question earlier, someone was mentioning about the buddy system, to have a system in place that can support students that are facing this issue is very important as well. Yeah, I guess every one of us have our own low time. And we know how the experience is like when we are in that mental state of mind. And more than often for a child, when they're facing that situation, what are the systems that are in place that can help them to get through that bump, right? Yeah. I guess so. Sort of like a sharing from one of my friends as well. The suicidal thought students, right? A lot of times it just takes one friend that that can just bring them through that negative thought that will immediately cut off that possibility of them conducting that action, right? And if there's no one that is there to provide that kind of intervention to move them out of that thought, then it leads towards something bad, right? So I guess the buddy system and the system that is in place for those suffering from this, it's very important in that case as well, right? So I guess moving on, I guess it's starting to get more more into the severe side of things already. I guess Kaishan, you spoke about the suicidal rate, depression. That's sort of like the way severe cases, right? Would you be able to share? I know you have shared in the Education Summit. Would you be able to share more in terms of the current situation? The data that you presented was quite high. It's quite worrisome even for me as well when you were mentioning to me as well. Would you be able to give us some perspective in terms of that, in terms of depression and leading on towards suicidal cases?
Yeah, it's I guess in the survey, our Ministry of Education's in collaborations with WHO's, they're conducting a global school health surveys on every 5 years. And from the data of the global school health surveys, we have found that in there is increasing trends of suicidal behaviors among students. Over here, suicidal behaviors doesn't mean that they have died from suicide. Very few children actually died from suicide, but many children have started to have suicidal ideations. and other, and some of them even have a plan, or they sometimes they might have attempted. The rate of children who are below 16 years old, sorry, children means that they are, sorry, teenagers who are each in between 13 to 17 years old, there are about 7% of them has attempted suicide for at least once in the past 1 year. So that's actually quite, it's still quite a lot. Now, often our adolescents, our children, they are harming themselves, they are hurting themselves because there's no outlet for their angers, there's no outlet for their frustrations. There are probably not many people who are able to understand them. I strongly agree with what Jay mentioned just now. Sometimes it just take one friend with a pair of listening ears to take them out from the tragedy, from the situations, preventing them from killing themselves. So the thing is, are we as a community, are we the educators ready enough to lend our listening ears? Are we ready to identify or to find out that our students probably are having that? And then, are we ready to learn how to support these children? I guess these are some of the things that's challenging us, and how can we mitigate the risk? How can we mitigate the scenario?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So oftentimes a lot of teachers told us, or entities out there telling us that, hey, there's this hotline that you can call. But
Mm,
to my thought is that, what are the statistics of, or the possibility of someone in that state of mind to muster up the courage to call that number? If they were to be able to call that number, they would have been easily able to conduct so-called like the care exercise and things like that, right? So
mm,
I guess everyone needs a friend to really help and guide them as well. And I guess the ongoing process of assessing and to catch whether any of the students are having this thoughts early before that. I guess, Kaishan, you were mentioning that a lot of the situation actually got brought up when it's too late, right? When something bad has already happened,
mm,
rather than an early prevention case of it as well. So I would like to probably shift our focus more towards the preventive side of things. I guess when it's too late, there's really not much a teacher can really do, rather than, aside from sending them to a professional or an expert person to help them. If we were to go on towards the preventive side, right, the day-to-day
mm,
things that we can do to allow
mm.
students to probably have a more to prepare them, right, before something like this happen. What are the things that teachers or parents can do to assist them when even before something bad like this happen?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I guess nobody would disagree with me that prevention is always better than cure. And how do we prevent things from happening? Resilience is something that's extremely important. How do we cultivate resilience skills, or the resiliencies of our younger generations? What are resilience doesn't means that they never fall down. Resilience means that they fell and they're able to pick themselves up.
Right,
Okay,
right.
they can bounce back. Yeah, they are able to bounce back. So some of the pitfalls, very commonly I'm seeing in my practice, that a lot of parents, they are very, very protective to their children, because they probably have went through a lot of hardships during their childhood, during their earlier days. So they were telling themselves that if I'm forming my families, I don't want my children to suffer from the same difficulties. So I prevent them from whatever hardship it is. Now that's actually not very helpful, because your children would not have the skills to solve the problems, or to take up any stress. So resilience means that they can fall and then they will be able to bounce back. How do we cultivate that? What are the things that could be helpful over there? Um, there are certain exercise that there are certain exercises that can that has been very very helpful. The first one is gratitude exercise. It has been proven by many research. If you get people to think about five things or three or five things that they are grateful for every day, and that's going to help them to that's somehow cultivate their mind to be more grateful. That's improve their gratefulness. They have more resources to cope with stress, and they tend to have better psychological well-being. And whenever we tell this to young people, or many young people think that yeah, that's true, that's right, but it's lame, you know. If if you keep asking me to tell you that it's how is this, I'm grateful for my meals today, I'm grateful for this, for that. Oh, young people think that's very lame. One of my colleagues and his students, they actually develop it. They make it into Instagram versions of these gratitude projects. So they get groups of participants and ask this group of participants to young. They are all young people, very technology savvy, and the inclusion criteria is that they must have Instagram account. All right. So they measure this group of students baseline, these young people baselines of their well-being, and then ask these groups of students, these participants, for the next 30 days, they take pictures. Okay, with they take pictures on things that they feel grateful for. So it can be anything. For example, the sky is really blue and it's really clear today, and you like how the sky looks like. You just take pictures of the sky and you just upload on your Instagram. If you really like the meals that you have just taken today, and you just take pictures of the meals and then you just upload on your Instagram. So ask this group of people that they need to upload a minimum of 3 to 5 pictures every day for the next 30 days, and they measure their psychological well-being again after 30 days. Guess what? All participants feel much better. Their psychological well-being improve, their resilience, they're able to take up more stress, and when they face adversities and difficulties, they're able to pick themselves up faster. So that's something that's easily implementable, and many of our young people would like it. You ask them to post some things if you're able to post something on Instagram, your homework is to post something on Instagram. I'm sure they will be like, yay, that's the things I'm doing every day, right? So yeah, so that's cultivating on gratitudes. Number two, it's on mindfulness, I guess. Yeah. So something else on mindfulness means that how do we train our students to pay attention at the present moments, and then how do we give them in a non-judgmental way. So in mindfulness practice, one of the most popular exercise, it's called mindful breathing. So it's about paying attention at your breath. You do not specifically to change your breath. You just need to pay attention at your breath for, let's say, for a few minutes. So in one of the schools that I'm aware of, initially, the school has been having a lot of behavioral issues. The numbers of students that are having disciplinary problems was really, really high. And the school teachers have been, they have tried all sorts of, they came up with all sorts of rules, lots of different punitive systems. If you didn't bring your school bags, if you fight, then how many marks you are going to be deducted. You know? But they found that yes, all these techniques, all these punitive system works for a while, and then after a while, then it's not working anymore. So one school decided to, one of these school principals have learned about these mindful breathing techniques, and she decided that she wants to implement it in her school. So every morning, before they start their class, they get everyone. So teachers go into class, everyone takes 1 minute, starting from 1 minute to do mindful breathing exercise. So everyone just sit down, observe their breath for a minute, and then they start their class. And then after 2 weeks, they increase it to 3 minutes, and then later on they increase it to up to 5 minutes. So 5 minutes actually not really a lot. Initially, they found that most students wouldn't be able to sit still. They will just you ask them to observe their breath, but they were doing funny faces. But as times goes by, when they know that this is a norms, this is a culture, then they started to practice it. Guess what? 3 months after this practice, the disciplinary cases reduced by about 30% in that school.
Right.
That's quite, that's quite a significant achievement for the schools. It is just as easy as observing your breath.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I heard a lot about this type of mindfulness exercises, right? Like observing your breath, observing your thoughts, and such. I just wanted to find out from a clinical psychologist perspective, right? Why does a simple exercise like that works in a way to help students to ease their stress level, or in a way to help them to correct their path towards something better? From that perspective, why is it effective? Yeah.
Okay. Now it got to do with it got to do with our neural system. So when you are paying attention, specifically, when you're explicitly paying attention at your breath, you're actually recruiting your attentions. You make your you narrow down, focus your attention on one single thing. Now, lots of mistakes and lots of difficulties that we make are actually due to something we call it autopilot system. Now, our mind, for example, you're eating certain things that every day you eat the same food. After some time, you no longer enjoy the food. You don't find it very helpful. You don't find the food that you're eating it's nice. But if you start to pay attention at the food, every mouth of your food, every chew that you take, you feel how the food looks like in your mouth. Then you started to feel that, hey, that's probably more delicious than I thought it is. In our trainings, in my clinics, I actually try that with often I try with my clients. I give sometimes raisins, sometimes chocolates, and many of them, when I tell them that you pay attention to these chocolates or these raisins, I never know that a raisin can be that delicious. Just because when you pay attention to that, it's going to activate the prefrontal cortex of your mind, of your brain, the front part of your brain. Now that's the part that is responsible for decision making, for controlling your impulses, for you to think about logical consequences. If I hit people, I'm going to get punished. My friends will feel hurt. My friends would feel people will be upset with that. Now, all those logical consequences, it all happens at our prefrontal cortex. And so a mindful breathing exercise, a simple exercise like this, actually helps to strengthen the prefrontal cortex of people's. Even studies have found that in adults, but probably not much. And there are numbers of ongoing investigations on children and adolescents. Yeah, we are hoping to see a similar patterns.
Right. So in a way, it breaks the habitual pattern, or in a way, the reflex of the brain. So it used to be you have done this certain action 100 times. Okay, if this happened, this is why I react to. So that's sort of like the habitual side of us. But when it's engaging the prefrontal cortex, it's much more in the present, whereby you are making an active decision on a moment-to-moment basis, right? Okay.
Yep.
Wow, that's very interesting from there. Finally, we get a very interesting and a very concrete perspective from an actual clinical psychologist. Thank you for that, Khai Shuen. It really solved a lot of my questions with regards to the breathing and mindfulness exercise as well. And I hope those of you who are watching over here probably can test it out with your students in your classes, or your kid, right? And see if there's any changes, right? So, Khai Shuen, would you be able to sort of like step by step, 1, 2, 3, what they can do? So ask them to sit down and just focus on their breathing, is it?
Yeah, so it's basically sitting down comfortably, and then get the child, and then get children to pay attention at their breath. So the breathing in and out of their breath. Some people would ask children to count their breath. So breathing in 1, 2, 3, 4, breathing out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or something like that. But over the years I found it that that's actually very difficult to be done, because each children have different body size, different lung capacity. Some children would find that counting to 4 is too short. Some others will find that it is too long. So that's not the purpose. Counting the breath is not the purpose. The purpose is basically they pay attention. So just tell children to breathe normally and just pay attention at how they are breathing in and breathing out. Because it's a little bit abstract for them to pay attention at their breath, especially for younger children. I sometimes ask them to put a hand on their tummy so they feel how their tummies are rising and falling. That's probably easier. For sure, children would tell you that their minds are wandering around. After a few seconds, they start to think about the ice cream that they had just now. They start to think about the spelling test that they're going to take afterwards. Every time when the minds wanders around, just gently bring the minds back to their breath. So and again, again, and again. So the mind wanderings will happen more frequently, more often during the first week or the second weeks, and then after 2 weeks of practice, generally most people would find it the mind wandering reduces. So it reduces and it's easier for them to focus. Yeah.
Right. And by the way, you prescribe this to a lot of your clients as well, with quite interesting and very good results as well, right?
Yep, that's right. But nevertheless, I would still have to emphasize that there's nothing one size. There's no one thing that is one size fits all. It's not a kill-all pill. Many children find it very helpful, but there are children that find it more frustrating of doing this. So if it happens that in your class one particular child thinks that this is not helpful and he refuses to practice it, well, then we have some other tools that probably works for him or her.
Right. Yeah, I guess some might require something visual, like the gratitude Instagram post that might be helpful for them as well. Yeah. So if you're a teacher, there are a few tools that Khai has shared earlier, right, until now. So there was the care system, and then there's the Kasih system, and then there's the Instagram post activity on gratitude pictures, right? Ian, if you are watching right now, I guess Khai, we are sort of like planning for a public speaking competition internationally. So between 6 countries, we will have kids from different schools, from different countries, from 6 different countries to have a presentation online, right? To have sort of like a competition. Probably we can have that to have one of the topic as like a gratitude. What are you grateful for? That'll be something interesting for young kids, right? So Ian, if you're listening, so probably you can add that into the topic for the kids to present. Right. Yeah, I really like that the Instagram post is something visual, and when you share it out to other students, they are able to catch it on as well, and hopefully they are able to pick it up on that as well. And of course, the mindfulness exercise, that's something that we can do as well. Right. Okay. So those of you who are watching, thank you so much for still keeping on touch. If you have any question for Khai, please do comment down below. I just want to bring up a couple of questions over here. Let's see over here. How serious is the matter now? Do schools need assistance and attention by stakeholders? Do they have to spend allocations and experts on this? I guess this was during our discussion earlier in terms of the students not being able to have professional or expert personnel to help them when they're dealing with rough or stressful situations. Any comment on that in terms of how serious is this matter, and do schools need any form of assistance, and what can we do about it?
Yeah, certainly. The things are getting. I would say that the rates it's a little bit worrying, because we are seeing the numbers are increasing by every like the WHO Global School Health Surveys. It's being conducted every 5 years, and every 5 years we are seeing the numbers are increasing. So it's worrying, I would say. The school needs help, needs assistance, certainly. Our government has been trying very hard to do this, trying to address the issues. 20 over years ago, since 1996, our government started to implement full-time school counselor systems where they for every 500 students in school, there should be at least one full-time counselors. So in the earlier days, most of the counselors are not, they attend short courses on counseling. For example, just 3 months counseling courses, and then they will become the school counselors. But right now, we have more and more professionally trained school counselors, as in they host a bachelor of counseling or even master of counseling in the school. So things are getting better. And but I think there are still a lot of rooms for improvements. Recently in Malaysia, I would like to highlight this because these efforts by the Kementerian Pendidikan, by the Ministry of Education, is very commendable. They have changed the way how they screen for students' mental health. After the MCO, when our school reopened in July, they have actually launched out a whole new set of screening questionnaire on identifying children who are depressed, who are anxious, and who might have suicidal thoughts. And last time they used to screen only maybe 20% of the students in the school, but now the Ministry of Education have made it compulsory for to screen all students instead of only one or two students, only 20% of the students. Certainly, it adapts the workloads of the teachers. But I would say that I hope if you are one of the teachers who is doing this job, implementing these new policies, thank you very much for doing this, because this is a very important works, and it's very impactful to the students. The gaps that we have now is that, yes, we know that this much of students, we probably have the mental health profile of each and every students in the school right now, but the human resource, how many counselors or psychologists or psychiatrists that we have in the country to address the needs, to meet the needs of the students. Now that's still a huge question marks that we have.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So sorry, you were wanting to continue on. Sorry.
So I hope we hope that I think it's $1 million questions. How can we meet all the needs, and is there any things that we can do to bridge the treatment gaps that we have? Yeah. So if any of you have any ideas, feel free to contribute and see how we can together we can make things better for our children.
Okay. Yeah. By the way, you were mentioning in terms of the assessment, it's sort of like a survey form for students to fill up, right?
Yeah.
Where can teachers or educators get access to this survey form or access form? Because I believe that especially during this time, right, where some countries are forced to study from home. There's zero interaction between students. It might cause a lot of stress, and especially from, say, for example, Sabah, Sempurna. I saw that there was a teacher from Sempurna as well. Do let us know how's the situation over there, right? I guess it's very important that as a teacher, we actually get access or understanding of the students' emotional state as well, right? So any of the assessment forms that we can get, that we can easily share with students and ask them to just fill up so that we can have more understanding in terms of their mental well-being.
Yeah, sure. You can just teachers who are listening on the line, you can just Google PHQ, P for Penang, so PH for health, PHQ, phqscreeners.com. So probably I'll share it here with Jace, and you can put it at the comments. You can download the questionnaires from the website. It's free, and it comes in it comes in all languages. I know that we have some friends from Philippines. Let me have a quick check on whether Philippines languages is available. Yeah, so there are Hiligayno language for Philippines,
Okay.
and
Is this the one, Khai Shuen? phqscreeners.com, right?
Correct. phqscreeners.com. Yeah. So and there are also Shivano for Philippines, Shivano Davao for Philippines. If we have friends from Philippines, Jay, where else are our friends coming from?
I guess from Jakarta, they are from Brunei, from India, from Nepal. I saw it earlier, and then there are a few from some, I think, from Vietnam as well. Yeah, and
Okay.
a lot of them will be watching later on as well. So yeah.
Yeah, so the questionnaire comes in Indonesian language as well. And then from Brunei, yeah, there's a Bahasa Malaysia language, Bahasa Melayu language that's available in Arabic languages as well. So and it's for free, so there's no issues in copyrights or something like that. Yeah.
Okay. So what will the teachers do is that from there they can download sort of like an assessment form, right, for
Correct.
their students to fill up, and
Yep.
then they should be able to get sort of like a ballpark in terms of how the student's mental well-being is. Okay.
Yep.
Well, this is
Yep.
very helpful in a way. So hopefully those who are watching and also will be watching later on that you are able to have this in your online classes or in your school as well, right? Okay.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much for that sharing. I was not aware of this at all until you bring it up. So it's good that we actually have you on board today to share with us on this as well. Okay.
No problem.
phqscreeners.com.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I will need to check from my end as well. Yeah, so there are teachers from Brunei as well, from Brunei Darussalam. Yes. Okay. So if you have any questions for Mr. Khai Shuen, please do comment down below, especially in terms of the PHQ screeners. So Khai Shuen, so for a teacher, right? We talk a lot about the catching the assessment, right? Understanding your students' emotional well-being, and after that, being able to provide them with the guidance, and hopefully, end of it, being able to assist or support them to get them out or to a better state of mind. Aside from this, right, as an educator or teacher, right, any final conclusions on what teachers out there or educators or parents out there can actually do to probably equip themselves to be more prepared if any of their students or any of their children would eventually face some difficulties such as this. Any comments on that or any suggestions to them? Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, I guess I would like to bring up two things as my conclusions. Number one, I would like to bring up a person's. So he's Oprah Winfrey. Many people probably, some of you probably are familiar with Oprah Winfrey. She's a black woman who is a very successful black woman. She's a TV host. So she says that but for those of you who are aware of Oprah Winfrey's backgrounds, she came from a very challenging family backgrounds. She was being abused multiple times, sexually abused when she was younger. At the age of 13 or 14, she gave birth to a stillborn baby as a result of sexual abuse. And so that was she has went through a lot of hardship. Her family background, so I guess for lots of teachers who are listening here, often we find it very helpless and powerless because you know that your students are not doing well, and you also know that the main reasons why they are not doing well is because they're not doing well is because of their family backgrounds. And you felt that so helpless because you cannot change their family backgrounds. You cannot be their parents. You can, as a teachers, you can only help so much. I would like to let you know that when Oprah Winfrey faced these difficulties, this much of challenge, the one that who actually guided her, the one that who showed her the pathways of the lights, is actually her teachers, her grade 5 teachers. She was once saying that for those of us who success, it's because there are people who show us the light. The light is not necessarily coming from not always comes from the family, and in her case, it was her teachers, a teachers that who has been delivering continuous care, sometimes as simple as just asking her, hey, how are you doing? Are you doing all right? Is there anything that can assist you? How can I make your how can I help you to make your life easier? Just a simple concerns that makes a lot of difference for her. So I guess that's I hope all of us here, all the educators over here, we remember this. We can be the lights for our students. Yeah. And for parents, of course, you have more responsibilities. You can actually helps to determine by equipping yourself with more knowledge. Then you can help to equip yourself to be a better parents and uh, makes your to improve the quality of life of your children's. Yeah. So that's number one. Number two, there are numbers of trainings online during these lockdown seasons. There are numbers of online trainings available on mental health as well as suicide prevention issues. It's closely related to what we have discussed in the past few days. In these sessions. So what I'll be doing is I will share the link with Jay later on. Jay can post it at the comment side. Then so those of you who are interested, you can pick up these online trainings. The beauty of these online trainings that I'm talking about, it's very short. It's not something that requires you to sit down for 8 hours a day. So it's probably only it's probably only 10 minutes or 10 or 15 minutes sessions per training, a very short modules. So with those skills that will help you to equip yourself with a little bit on how can you support your students or support your child if you suspect that they are having in a hard time.
Right. Okay, so we'll definitely share it in the link later on in the comment. So yeah, so hopefully, thank you so much for that sharing, Kai Shuen. So and once again, I guess we've come. Wow, it's been 2 hours that we have been chatting on this topic. So I guess we have to cut it short for the moment right now. So if any of you who have any questions for Kai Shuen or any comments on this, please do send any of your questions to this email down below. So hopefully if you have any further questions, we can actually address it up to Kai Shuen as well. So it's hello.edusummit@gmail.com. So it's being shown right now. So yeah. So I guess from towards that, thank you so much once again, Kai Shuen, for sharing your immense experience in terms of mental well-being for teachers and students as well. And I hope that teachers who are watching and parents as well who are watching right now, you are able to extract some gold nuggets out of this that you can really implement it in your classroom or to your for your children as well. And for example, to your colleagues as well as your family members as well, because it's not it's a very important topic and it's a very serious topic as well, especially during a very challenging time that we are facing right now as well. All right. So I guess with that, Mr. Pheh, thank you so much for joining into this EduChat series. We hope that we're able to have you and probably your team to come on board and to have more of a collaboration like this. Hopefully, it's able to help more teachers out there. Yeah. Yes. And yeah, so for those of you, if you have found this beneficial, please do give a like, a love, send some emoticon for Kai Shuen to let him know that if his session is actually helpful for you, right? With towards that. All right, so Kai Shuen, thank you so much with that. So reluctantly, we will have to part ways a very short while again. Hopefully, I wish you well. Hopefully, everything gets better soon, especially with the current situation. And yeah, hopefully, more people are being aware of this, what the message that you're sharing over here.
Sure.
Right. So with towards that, we will see you shortly, Kai Shuen. All right.
Thank you. And bye for everyone.
Okay. All right, so that was Pheh Khai Shuen. Wow, that was a very, very interesting discussion and very interesting topic. Me, myself, I've learned quite a number of things from Khai Shuen. If we were to summarize all of it, there's quite a handful of it, including the sharing session that he actually did in the Education Summit as well. So for those of you who have not watched or listened to his sharing session earlier, please do head on to our Facebook group to get access of his sharing session. It was a very compact and a very, how should I say, in a way, it's very implementable, and they are very, there's a lot of gold nuggets that you can actually learn out of it with regards to this topic. Right. So I guess we have to cut short on the session for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in our education chat series for today. I hope that, as always, it has been very beneficial for you, and hopefully it can bring some form of positive change in your life, in your education life, in your parenting life, as well as in your students' life as well. Right. So final remarks on towards this. Those of you who are just joining in into this Education Summit platform, we actually will be having an education chat series every Saturday on our Facebook channel over here, where we will discuss with experienced educators in discussing on important education topics such as this as well. So please do follow us on our Facebook page, right? And as well as please do join into the Facebook group as well, where you get access to all 50 other speakers sharing on different education solutions, topics, as well as strategies as well, right? And of course, in terms of the accessibility of it, you can go on and get access to this video on YouTube channel as well. And of course, if you find this video or sharing session beneficial to any of your friends, family, or students, please do share this video out to any of them. Hopefully more students, teachers, and parents can get benefit out of this sharing session as well. All right, so I guess with that, I would like to wish all of you a very, very good and excellent and fabulous weekend, and hopefully everyone is in a very good mental state condition, right? Especially after this session. And we hope to see you in the next Education Summit in next week on Saturday as well. So Jay Wong here, signing off. Take care, and I will see you next week in our next Education Summit. Take care, everyone, and have a fabulous evening.